Have you ever been judged solely on how you look? For Dr. Alana Mercer, a quiet flight home turned into a nightmare when a senior flight attendant decided she didn't belong in first class. The insults were loud, the humiliation was public, and the police were called. But the flight attendant made one fatal miscalculation. She didn't check the manifest to see who Alana actually was. When the captain stepped out of the cockpit and saw the woman being handcuffed, his face went pale. What happened next wasn't just justice, it was total destruction. You have to hear this story. The fluorescent lights of JFK's Terminal 4 hummed with the chaotic energy of the holiday rush. It was a symphony of rolling suitcase wheels, crying infants, and the robotic drone of PA announcements. But inside the exclusive Pan Atlantic Airways first-class lounge, the air was still, smelling faintly of expensive espresso and aged leather. Dr. Alana Mercer adjusted the oversized grey hoodie she was wearing. It was a Howard University pullover, frayed at the cuffs, worn soft by years of late nights in labs and wind tunnels. To the casual observer, Alana looked like a tired graduate student, or perhaps someone who had just rolled out of bed to catch a last-minute flight. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her face devoid of makeup, and she carried a battered leather rucksack that had seen better days. She didn't look like money. She didn't look like status. And that was exactly how she liked it. Alana slumped into a wingback chair in the corner of the lounge, pulling her noise-cancelling headphones over her ears. It had been a grueling week in New York. The negotiations for the merger between her aerospace engineering firm, Mercer Dynamics, and the government's defense contracting division had lasted 72 hours straight. She had signed the final papers 4 hours ago. The deal was worth $4.2 billion. Technically, Alana Mercer was now one of the wealthiest women in aviation. But right now, all she wanted was a ginger ale and 6 hours of sleep on the way to London. She closed her eyes, exhaling a long, shuddering breath. "Excuse me, miss." The voice was sharp, nasal, and dripping with thinly veiled condescension. Alana cracked one eye open. Standing over her was a lounge attendant, a young man who looked apologetic, and behind him, a woman in a pristine, Pan-Atlantic flight attendant uniform. The woman was terrifyingly perfectly groomed. Her blonde hair was lacquered into an immobile French twist, her red lipstick was applied with surgical precision, and her name tag read, Brenda Miller, Senior Purser. She was staring at Alana's frayed hoodie as if it were contaminated with radioactive waste. "Can I help you?" Alana asked, sliding her headphones down to her neck. "This area is reserved for ticketed first-class passengers and Centurion members only," Brenda said. She didn't ask, she stated it. Her eyes flicked toward the exit. "The general boarding area is out those doors and to the left. Economy boarding begins in 40 minutes. Alana blinked, too tired for anger. "I know. I'm on flight 492 to Heathrow. I'm just waiting for boarding." Brenda let out a short, incredulous laugh. It was a practiced sound, designed to make the listener feel small. "Honey, flight 492 is a flagship route. The upgrade list is miles long. I highly doubt you cleared the standby list looking like that." She gestured vaguely at Alana's entire existence. "Now please, let's not make a scene. The paying customers need these seats." Alana sighed and reached into the pocket of her sweatpants. She pulled out a crumpled boarding pass and held it up. "Mercer Alana Doctor. Seat 1A. Brenda snatched the paper from her hand. She stared at it, her eyes narrowing. She flipped it over, checked the date, and held it up to the light as if checking for a watermark. "It's mobile too, if you need to scan it," Alana said quietly. Brenda thrust the ticket back at her. "System glitches happen," she muttered, more to herself than Alana. "I'll be checking this manually at the gate. Don't get comfortable. If this is a fraudulent employee pass or a buddy pass, You aren't just getting kicked out of the lounge, you're getting banned from the airline." "It's a full-fare ticket, Brenda," Alana said, her patience thinning. "I paid for it." "We'll see," Brenda snapped. She turned on her heel, her dark blue skirt swishing aggressively as she marched out of the lounge. Alana watched her go, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. She had dealt with people like Brenda her whole life, people who couldn't reconcile the color of her skin with the tax bracket she occupied. Usually, she brushed it off. But today, exhaustion made her vulnerable. She looked at her phone, a text from her father, Marcus Mercer, the founder of Mercer Dynamics. "Congrats on the deal, Ali. Get some rest. The private jet was available. Why didn't you take it?" Alana typed back. "Commercial is faster today. Plus, I like the anonymity. Love you, Dad." If only she knew that her anonymity was about to be stripped away in the most brutal way possible. 40 minutes later, the boarding process for Flight 492 began. The gate area was packed. Businessmen in bespoke suits tapped furiously on BlackBerries and iPhones, families corralled screaming toddlers, and tourists clutched their duty-free bags. Alana waited until the priority boarding announcement. "We now invite our first-class passengers and Diamond status members to board through the dedicated lane." Alana stood up, shouldering her heavy rucksack. She joined the short queue. Directly in front of her was a tall, older white man in a grey suit. He looked like a senator. When he scanned his ticket, the gate agent smiled brightly. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Henderson. Wonderful to see you again." Mr. Henderson nodded and walked down the jet bridge. Alana stepped up. She placed her phone on the scanner. Beep! A green light flashed. The gate agent, a harried-looking woman named Sarah, looked up and smiled automatically. "Welcome aboard, Ms." Her eyes drifted down to Alana's hoodie, then back to the screen. The smile faltered. "Is there a problem?" Alana asked. Before Sarah could answer, a hand reached over the counter and typed something rapidly onto the keyboard. It was Brenda Miller. She had been waiting at the entrance of the jet bridge, watching the line like a hawk. "Hold on, Sarah," Brenda said, her voice loud enough for the people in line behind Alana to hear. "The system has been flagging duplicate seats all morning. I need to verify this one." Brenda leaned over the counter, her face inches from Alana's. "Let me see your ID and the credit card used to book this flight." "That is not standard procedure," Alana said, her voice hardening. "I just scanned in. The light was green." "Standard procedure is whatever I say it is when I suspect fraud," Brenda hissed. "We have a lot of credit card theft rings targeting this airline lately. You fit the profile." "The profile?" Alana repeated, her voice rising slightly. "And what profile is that?" "Tired engineer." "Credit card." "Now," Brenda demanded. The line behind them was growing restless. A man in a suit behind Alana sighed loudly. "Come on, let's go. Some of us have meetings in London." Alana felt the heat rising in her cheeks. It wasn't shame, it was fury. She dug into her rucksack and produced her black wallet. She pulled out a heavy black titanium card, the American Express Centurion card, the black card. She slapped it on the counter along with her passport. Brenda looked at the card. For a second, a flicker of hesitation crossed her eyes. The black card was invitation only. It screamed wealth, but Brenda's ego was already too far involved to back down. She had decided Alana was a fraud, and Brenda Miller was never wrong. "Nice prop," Brenda sneered. "I can buy fake ones online for $20. She didn't even swipe it. She looked at Sarah. "Flag her ticket for secondary review. Let her board, but don't close the flight manifest yet. I'm going to run a manual check with security." "Brenda, the flight is fully booked," Sarah whispered nervously. "If she scans green—" "Just do it," Brenda barked. She turned to Alana with a fake plastic smile. "Go ahead, take your seat, but don't get too cozy. If that card bounces, we're turning the plane around on the tarmac." Alana snatched her ID and card back. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the effort it took not to scream. "You are making a mistake," Alana said, her voice deadly calm. "A very expensive mistake." "Move along." Brenda waved her off as if she were a stray dog. Alana walked down the jet bridge, the tunnel narrowing around her. She could hear the whispers of the passengers behind her. Did she steal that card? Probably a drug dealer's girlfriend. Why do they always cause trouble? Alana gritted her teeth. She stepped onto the plane. The interior of the Boeing 777 was magnificent, illuminated by soft mood lighting. She turned left into the first-class cabin. It was an exclusive sanctuary of 8 private suites. She found seat 1A. It was a window suite with a sliding door. She threw her bag into the overhead bin and collapsed into the seat. She needed this flight to be over. She needed to be home. She watched as other first-class passengers boarded. A flight attendant, a younger brunette named Chloe, came by with a tray of pre-flight champagne. She served Mr. Henderson across the aisle. She served the couple in row 2. When she got to Alana, she paused. Brenda had clearly spoken to her. Chloe looked nervous. She glanced toward the galley where Brenda was watching with her arms crossed. "Water, please," Alana said. "Just water." Chloe nodded quickly, handed her a plastic bottle of Dasani instead of the crystal glass everyone else got, and hurried away. Alana stared at the plastic bottle. It was petty. It was small. But it was a declaration of war. She reclined her seat, pulled her hood up over her eyes, and tried to disappear. But Brenda wasn't done. The plane doors closed, and the fasten seatbelt sign chimed. As the aircraft began its pushback from the gate, Brenda marched down the aisle of first class. She wasn't doing safety checks. She was heading straight for seat 1A. She stopped at Alana's suite and tapped aggressively on the plastic shell of the seat. "Ms. Mercer," Brenda said loudly. The engines were spooling up, but in the quiet first-class cabin, her voice carried perfectly. "We have a problem. I've just received word from the gate. There is a discrepancy with your payment. It was declined." Alana sat up, ripping her headphones off. "That is impossible. That card has no limit." "It was declined," Brenda lied smoothly. She was enjoying this. She had an audience now. Mr. Henderson was watching over the top of his newspaper. "Which means you are stealing this seat. Now, since we are already pushing back, I can't kick you off just yet. But you will grab your bags and move to economy immediately. There is a middle seat open in row 42 next to the lavatory. Move. Now." Alana looked at Brenda. She looked at the other passengers staring at her with a mix of pity and suspicion. "I am not moving," Alana said firmly. "I paid $6,000 for this seat. I have the receipt on my phone. If you want to check the payment, call the ground crew. I am the lead flight attendant on this aircraft, and I am giving you a direct order." Brenda's voice rose to a shout. "You are disrupting this flight. If you do not move to your proper place in the back, I will have the pilots return to the gate and have you arrested for federal trespassing and theft of services. Is that what you want?" Alana unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood up. She was tall, almost 6 feet, and even in her hoodie, she towered over Brenda. "Call the pilots," Alana said. Her voice was ice. "Do it. Tell the captain to turn this plane around. I want you to do exactly that." Brenda blinked. She hadn't expected the bluff to be called, but she had gone too far to stop now. Her face turned a blotchy red. "Fine," Brenda spat. She grabbed the interphone handset on the wall of the galley. She punched in the code for the cockpit. "Captain!" Brenda said into the phone, her eyes locked on Alana's. "We have a level 2 disturbance in first class. A passenger is refusing crew instructions and is potentially flying on a fraudulent ticket. I need you to return to the gate for law enforcement." The cabin went dead silent. The plane, which had been taxiing, lurched to a sudden halt. Brenda smiled a cruel, victorious smile. "I hope you like jail, honey." The Boeing 777, a massive machine capable of crossing oceans, felt claustrophobic as it rumbled back toward the terminal. The hum of the engines died down, replaced by the hushed, angry whispers of the elite passengers in first class. Every minute of delay was costing these people money, and they blamed the woman in the grey hoodie. "Unbelievable," Mr. Henderson muttered, snapping his newspaper shut. "People like that have no respect for anyone else's time." Alana sat frozen in seat 1A. She could feel the weight of their stares. It was a physical pressure. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her breathing controlled. She knew the law. She knew her rights. But she also knew that in an aluminum tube controlled by Federal Aviation regulations, the flight crew was God. The plane jolted to a stop. The fasten seatbelt sign flickered off, but the captain's voice came over the PA system, tight and angry. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have returned to the gate to deal with a security issue involving a disruptive passenger. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Local authorities are boarding the aircraft." Brenda Miller stood at the front of the cabin, arms crossed, tapping her foot. She looked like a general surveying a battlefield she had already won. She made a point of making eye contact with Alana, mouthing the words, "I told you so." The forward cabin door hissed open. The cold air of the jet bridge swirled in, bringing with it 2 Port Authority police officers. They were large men, their hands resting near their belts, their faces serious. "Where is the disturbance?" the lead officer asked. His name tag read, Officer Kowalski. "Right here," Brenda said, her voice instantly transforming. The jagged edge was gone, replaced by a shaky, victimized tremolo. She pointed a manicured finger at Alana. "Seat 1A. She refused to show valid payment. She's squatting in a seat she didn't pay for. And when I asked her to move to her assigned seat in economy, she became aggressive. She threatened me." "I did not threaten you," Alana said calmly, remaining seated. "I asked you to verify my payment." "She's lying!" Brenda cried out, taking a step back, as if afraid Alana would lunge at her. "She said she was going to make me pay. She was shouting. The whole cabin heard it." Officer Kowalski looked at Mr. Henderson across the aisle. "Sir, did you witness this?" Henderson didn't look at Alana. He just wanted to take off. "She was arguing with the stewardess. It was loud. We just want to go to London, officer. Just get her off." That was all the confirmation Kowalski needed. He stepped into Alana's suite. The space was suddenly very small. "Ma'am, I need you to stand up and grab your bag," Kowalski said firmly. "Officer, this is a misunderstanding," Alana said, keeping her hands visible. "I am Dr. Alana Mercer. I hold a valid first-class ticket. If you check the manifest or call the Airline Operations Center—" "Ma'am, the flight crew wants you off the plane," Kowalski interrupted. "Under federal law, if the pilot or crew says you go, you go. We can sort out the ticket details in the terminal. But right now, you are trespassing on a federally regulated aircraft. Stand up, or I will have to physically remove you." Alana looked at the officer's eyes. There was no room for negotiation. If she resisted, she would be tackled. She would be on the news. The headline would be, "Crazy passenger fights cops at JFK." It would ruin her reputation before the truth ever came out. Slowly, painfully, Alana stood up. She grabbed her battered rucksack from the overhead bin. "Turn around," Kowalski commanded. "Is that necessary?" Alana asked, her voice trembling slightly for the first time. Procedure for a disruptive passenger, Kowalski said. He pulled a pair of zip-tie flex cuffs from his belt. Alana turned around. She felt the cold plastic tighten around her wrists. The sound of the zip-tie ratcheting shut was deafening in the silent cabin. Brenda let out a soft sigh of satisfaction. "Thank you, officer. I didn't feel safe with her on board." "Let's go," Kowalski said, grabbing Alana by the elbow. Alana walked down the aisle. It was the longest walk of her life. She passed the other first-class passengers. Some filmed her with their phones. Others shook their heads in disgust. "Trash," someone whispered. "Shouldn't even be allowed in the airport," another murmured. Alana kept her head high, staring straight ahead. But inside, she was burning. The humiliation was absolute. She was a billionaire. She was a genius. She was a philanthropist. But in this moment, under the sneering gaze of Brenda Miller, she was just a criminal in a hoodie. They reached the aircraft door. Brenda was standing there, holding a manifest clipboard. As Alana was guided past her, Brenda leaned in, her voice a poisonous whisper only Alana could hear. "Next time, fly coach where you belong." Alana stopped. She looked Brenda dead in the eye. "There won't be a next time for you, Brenda." Brenda laughed. "Get her out of here." The officers shoved Alana gently but firmly onto the jet bridge. The cool air hit her face. She was off the plane. The nightmare was real. But just as they stepped onto the metal ramp of the bridge, a deep, booming voice echoed from inside the cockpit. "Stop!" The command was so loud, so authoritative, that Officer Kowalski froze in his tracks. Even Brenda jumped. Captain James Sterling was a legend at Pan Atlantic Airways. A former Navy fighter pilot with 30 years of commercial experience, he was the kind of man who commanded respect without asking for it. He was tall, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. He had been running through the pre-flight checklist when the commotion in the cabin had forced him to halt everything. He was furious. A return to the gate meant paperwork. It meant a missed slot in London. It meant answering to corporate. He had stormed out of the cockpit to sign the removal forms and glare at the unruly passenger who had ruined his schedule. He stepped out of the cockpit just as Alana was being led away. He saw the back of a woman in a grey hoodie, her hands bound behind her back. He saw Brenda Miller looking smug. "What is the delay here?" Sterling barked. "I need the paperwork signed so we can push back." "Right here, Captain," Brenda said, beaming. She handed him the clipboard. "Just the disruptive passenger I told you about. Police have her. We're good to go." Sterling took the clipboard, but his eyes were still on the passenger on the jet bridge. Something about the posture, the proud, defiant tilt of the head, even in defeat, felt familiar. "Wait," Sterling said. He stepped past Brenda, moving onto the jet bridge. "Captain?" Brenda asked, confused. "We need to close the door." Sterling ignored her. He walked up to the police officers. "Officer, hold on a second." Officer Kowalski turned Alana around. "Captain, we've got it under control." Captain Sterling looked at the woman's face. For a moment, his brain couldn't process it. He saw the hoodie. He saw the lack of makeup. But then he saw the eyes. Intelligent, fierce, and currently burning with a cold fire. Sterling's face drained of color. The clipboard dropped from his hand, clattering loudly onto the metal floor of the jet bridge. "Dr. Mercer," he gasped. Alana looked at him. She recognized him immediately. 3 years ago, she had personally overseen the installation of the Mercer X-1 guidance system on this very aircraft. She had spent hours in the simulator with the senior pilots, teaching them the new interface. Sterling had been one of them. He had shaken her hand and told her she was the finest engineer he'd ever met. "Hello, Captain Sterling," Alana said, her voice dry. "I apologize for the delay. Apparently, My hoodie is a security threat." Sterling looked at the flex cuffs on her wrists. His expression shifted from shock to pure, unadulterated horror. This wasn't just a VIP. This was the woman whose company held the patent for the navigation systems on half the Pan-Atlantic fleet. Her father, Marcus Mercer, was a personal golf buddy of the airline's CEO. Sterling spun around, his eyes blazing with a fury that made Brenda Miller take a step back. "Who ordered this?" Sterling roared. His voice echoed down the tunnel. Brenda stammered, her confidence cracking. I did, Captain. She didn't pay. She was aggressive. She has a fake credit card." "Fake credit card?" Sterling repeated, his voice dangerously low. He turned back to the police. "Cut those things off her. Now." "Captain, she's a suspect." Kowalski started. "She is not a suspect," Sterling shouted. "She is Dr. Alana Mercer. She owns Mercer Dynamics. She is worth more than this entire airplane. Cut them off." The officers scrambled. Kowalski pulled out a pair of cutters and snipped the plastic cuffs. Alana rubbed her wrists, wincing slightly. Brenda stood in the doorway of the plane, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Mercer," she whispered. "But she looks like a customer," Alana finished for her, stepping back toward the plane entrance. She looked at Brenda with a gaze that could cut glass. "A customer who paid full fare." Sterling turned to Brenda. He was shaking with rage. "You told me she was a security threat. You told me she was fraudulent. Did you verify her ticket?" The system... I thought..." Brenda was pale now. Her perfect makeup suddenly looked like a clown's mask. "You thought?" Alana stepped closer to Brenda. "You didn't think, Brenda. You judged. You saw a black woman in a hoodie and decided I didn't belong in your world. You didn't check the manifest properly. You didn't run the card. You just wanted to humiliate me." "I was doing my job," Brenda whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "I was protecting the flight." "You were protecting your prejudice," Sterling snapped. He reached for the interphone on the wall. "Operations, this is Captain Sterling. I am declaring a crew incompatibility." The passengers in first class were craning their necks, trying to see what was happening. Mr. Henderson was standing in the aisle. "What's going on?" Henderson asked. "Are we leaving?" Sterling looked at Henderson, then at the rest of the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay. We have made a grave error. We just attempted to arrest Dr. Alana Mercer, the woman who designed the safety systems that keep you alive in the air, because my purser decided she didn't look rich enough to be here." A gasp went through the cabin. Mr. Henderson sat down abruptly, looking mortified. Sterling turned back to Brenda. "Get your bag, Miss Miller." Brenda froze. "What?" "Get your bag," Sterling enunciated. "You are relieved of duty. You are off this flight." "You can't do that," Brenda cried, her voice shrill. "I'm the senior purser. Who is going to manage the cabin? You can't fly without me." "I would rather fly with an empty seat than with you," Sterling said. "You have 5 minutes to vacate my aircraft before I have these officers, who are already here, escort you off for filing a false police report." Brenda looked at the officers. Kowalski didn't look sympathetic anymore. He looked annoyed that he had been used as a pawn in Brenda's power trip. "Move it, lady," Kowalski grunted. Brenda looked at Alana one last time. She expected to see gloating. She expected a smirk. But Alana just looked tired. She looked disappointed. And that hurt worse than any insult. Trembling, Brenda grabbed her purse from the galley closet. She walked off the plane, passing Alana on the jet bridge. She kept her head down, the clicks of her heels sounding like a countdown to the end of her career. Sterling turned to Alana. "Dr. Mercer, I am profoundly sorry. Please take your seat. I will personally ensure the rest of your flight is flawless. And obviously, we will be refunding your ticket." Alana looked at the captain. "Thank you, James, but I'm not taking seat 1A. Sterling blinked. "You're not?" "No," Alana said. She looked back at the terminal. "I can't fly on this plane right now. I need to make a phone call, a very important phone call." "To your father?" Sterling asked nervously. "No," Alana said, pulling out her phone. "To the chairman of the board of Pan Atlantic Airways. I think it's time we discussed the renewal of our defense contracts and the employment standards of his staff." She hoisted her rucksack onto her shoulder. "You can go, Captain. I'll take the next one. I have some work to do here." Alana turned and walked back up the jet bridge, back toward the terminal. She wasn't walking in shame this time. She was walking into war. And inside the terminal, Brenda Miller was sitting on a bench, sobbing into her phone, unaware that the worst was yet to come. Alana Mercer didn't go back to the general terminal population. She walked straight back to the American Express Centurion lounge. This time, the man at the front desk didn't ask for her ticket. He had evidently heard the radio chatter. He was pale, sweating slightly. "Dr. Mercer," he stammered, opening the frosted glass gate before she even reached it. "Welcome back. Can I get you anything? A private room? Champagne? A quiet corner and a secure Wi-Fi connection," Alana said, her voice devoid of emotion. "And tell your staff that if anyone approaches me, there will be consequences." "Understood, ma'am. Completely understood." She found the deepest corner of the lounge, shielded by a high-backed leather booth. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt exhausted, drained by the adrenaline dump of near arrest and public humiliation. The memory of the zip ties tightening on her skin made her stomach churn. It wasn't just about Brenda. It was about the dozens of people who had watched, filmed, and assumed she was guilty. She pulled out her phone. It was time. She didn't call customer service. She didn't call a mid-level manager. She scrolled through her encrypted contacts until she found a number she hadn't used in 2 years. Arthur Pendleton, CEO, Pan Atlantic Airways. It rang twice. "Alana?" The voice on the other end was surprised, warm, corporate smooth. "To what do I owe the pleasure? Your father told me about the merger. Congratulations are in order. 4.2 billion. Incredible work." "Save the congratulations, Arthur," Alana said, cutting him off. "We have a problem. A massive problem." The warmth vanished from Pendleton's voice instantly. "What kind of problem? Is it the guidance system integration? Because our engineering team assured me it's not the hardware, Arthur. It's the software. Specifically, the human software you employ in your cabins." Alana took a breath and laid it out. She was clinical. She detailed the interaction in the lounge, the profiling at the gate, the public refusal of her valid payment, the threat to divert the plane, and finally, the police boarding the aircraft to handcuff her on the orders of senior purser Brenda Miller. There was dead silence on the other end of the line for a full 10 seconds. In the world of high-stakes corporate damage control, 10 seconds was an eternity. "Please tell me you are exaggerating, Alana," Pendleton finally whispered. "I am currently sitting in your JFK lounge because I refuse to fly on that aircraft after Captain Sterling had to physically intervene to stop your staff from having me arrested for flying while black in a hoodie," Alana said. "And Arthur? I'm looking at the Mercer Dynamics contract renewal agreement on my iPad right now. It's due for signature next week. It covers the avionics for your entire new fleet of A350s, a $600 million contract. Alana, listen to me." Pendleton's voice was urgent now, desperation creeping in. "Do not touch that contract. We will fix this. I promise you. This is an aberration. A rogue employee." "Is it?" Alana countered. "Or is it a culture you've allowed to fester? because that purser felt incredibly comfortable humiliating a first-class passenger on a flagship route. She felt empowered to lie to the flight deck and call the police based on zero evidence. That doesn't happen in a vacuum, Arthur. What do you want? Pendleton asked. The businessman had taken over. He knew this was going to cost him, and he just wanted to know the price. I want a full investigation, Alana said. Not a slap on the wrist. I want her employment history audited. I want to know how many other people she's done this to who didn't have my resources to fight back. And I want a public apology from Pan Atlantic Airways acknowledging exactly why this happened. Not some vague statement about customer service standards. I want you to say the words, racial profiling. Alana, our legal team will never let me say that publicly. It opens us up to liability. If you don't, Alana said, her voice dropping an octave, I will hold a press conference tomorrow morning on the steps of Mercer Dynamics. I will announce that we are severing ties with Pan Atlantic due to fundamental ethical misalignment. I will take our technology to Delta or United by lunchtime. And then I will release the footage. Footage? What footage? Pendleton sounded faint. You think in 2024, an entire first-class cabin didn't have their phones out? Alana lied. She didn't know for sure if there was video, but it was a statistically safe bet. It's going to be ugly, Arthur. Make your choice. While Alana was applying pressure in the C-suite, Brenda Miller was experiencing the rapid dissolution of her life in Terminal 4. She had been escorted off the jet bridge by Port Authority police. They hadn't arrested her. Captain Sterling hadn't pressed formal charges yet, but they had unceremoniously dumped her in the public terminal area with her luggage. Brenda sat on a hard metal bench near baggage claim, her immaculate uniform feeling suddenly like a costume she shouldn't be wearing. She was shaking. Her mind was a chaotic whirlwind of denial and victimization. How could he do that to me? She thought, furious tears prickling her eyes. Sterling threw me under the bus for some affirmative action hire with a rich daddy. I was doing my job. She looked suspicious. She tried to rally. She needed allies. She pulled out her phone, her long red fingernails clicking frantically against the screen. She called her union representative, a weary woman named Sarah Jenkins. Sarah, you have to help me. Brenda gulped into the phone, trying to keep her voice down so passers-by wouldn't hear. Captain Sterling just kicked me off a London flight. It's wrongful termination. It's a hostile work environment. Slow down, Brenda, Sarah said. What happened? Why did he kick you off? Because of a passenger. Some disruptive woman in first class refused to show payment and was aggressive. I followed protocol. I called the police. And then Sterling comes out and acts like she's the Queen of England just because he knows her. Brenda spun the narrative, believing her own lies as she spoke them. He publicly humiliated me, Sarah. He chose an unruly passenger over his own senior purser. Okay, Brenda, stay put, Sarah said cautiously. Send me your incident report immediately. Do not talk to anyone. I'll call crew scheduling and see what... Sarah cut herself off. Sarah, are you there? Brenda asked. Brenda! Sarah's voice was suddenly very cold. I just got an alert. Is this you? What alert? I'm sending you a link. Check your texts. Brenda pulled the phone away from her ear. A text message from Sarah appeared. It was a link to TikTok. Brenda clicked it. The video started. It was shaky, clearly filmed surreptitiously from across the aisle of a plane. It showed Alana Mercer, calm and composed in her grey hoodie. It showed Brenda leaning over her, her posture aggressive, her finger pointing. The audio was crystal clear. Brenda's voice on video. Honey, Flight 492 is a flagship route. I highly doubt you cleared the standby list looking like that. The video cut to the plane. Brenda's voice, If you do not move to your proper place in the back, I will have the pilots return to the gate and have you arrested. I hope you like jail, honey." Then, the walk of shame. Alana in handcuffs, the whispers, and then the climax. Captain Sterling bursting onto the jet bridge. Sterling's voice. "She is Dr. Alana Mercer. She owns Mercer Dynamics. She is worth more than this entire airplane. Cut them off." Sterling's voice to Brenda. "You told me she was a security threat. You told me she was fraudulent. Did you verify her ticket? You were protecting your prejudice." The video ended with a shot of Brenda's shocked, pale face as she was ordered off the plane. Brenda stared at the screen. The video had been posted only 20 minutes ago by an account called itraveltruth.nyc. It already had 1.4 million views. The caption read, "Pan Atlantic senior purser Brenda Miller tries to get black billionaire aerospace engineer arrested because she was wearing a hoodie in first class. The captain wasn't having it. Get this Karen fired." Pan Atlantic racist. Flying while black, Jarkama. Brenda scrolled down to the comments. There were thousands of them. They were a tidal wave of hatred. Look at that smug look on her face when she thought she won. Disgusting. Brenda Miller. We know her name now. Internet, do your thing. I'm cancelling my Pan Atlantic flight right now. This is unacceptable. Imagine being so racist you try to arrest the woman who built the plane you're working on. The levels of stupidity. She needs to lose everything, not just her job. Everything. Brenda felt like the floor of the terminal was dissolving beneath her feet. She couldn't breathe. It wasn't just a workplace dispute anymore. She was viral. She was the villain of the day. Her phone started buzzing incessantly. Text messages from friends asking if it was true. Notifications from Facebook where people were already finding her profile and leaving hateful messages. A shadow fell over her. She looked up. 2 large men in dark suits were standing over her bench. They wore Pan Atlantic corporate IDs on lanyards around their necks. They weren't flight crew. They were corporate security. "Ms. Brenda Miller," the first man said unsmilingly. "Yes," Brenda whispered, clutching her phone to her chest as if it could protect her. "We need your ID badge and your company phone. Immediately," the man said. "You are suspended, pending an immediate investigation. You need to come with us to the base manager's office. Now." Brenda looked around the terminal. People were staring at her. Some were holding up phones, recording the security team escorting her away. She recognized the look in their eyes. It was the same look she had given Alana Mercer an hour ago. Contempt. She stood up, her legs shaking, and surrendered her badge. The plastic laminate felt heavy as it left her hand. As she was marched away, flanking the security guards like a prisoner, her phone buzzed one last time in her hand before they took it. It was an email from the Pan Atlantic HR department. Subject line, "Mandatory disciplinary hearing, tomorrow 0900. The wildfire had begun to burn, and Brenda Miller was standing dead in the center of it. The following morning, the headquarters of Pan Atlantic Airways was a fortress under siege. News vans were camped out on the front lawn. The stock price had opened 4% lower and was dropping like a stone. The hashtag Urjashok Boycott Pan Atlantic was trending worldwide, outpacing the Super Bowl. Inside the glass-walled conference room on the top floor, the atmosphere was funereal. Brenda Miller sat at the end of a long mahogany table. She was wearing her best civilian suit, but she looked haggard. She hadn't slept. She had spent the night deleting her social media accounts, but the messages still found her. Texts, emails, even voicemails on her unlisted landline. Next to her sat Sarah Jenkins, her union representative, looking grim. Across from them sat the Vice President of HR, the head of legal, and, terrifyingly, Arthur Pendleton, the CEO himself. Pendleton didn't look at Brenda. He was staring out the window at the skyline, his back turned to the room. The silence stretched for an agonizing 3 minutes. Finally, the VP of HR, a stern woman named Ms. Vance, opened a thick file. "Ms. Miller," Vance began, her voice crisp, "we are here to review the incident on Flight 492. We have the police report, the captain's log, the statements from 3 other flight attendants, and the video evidence." "The video is out of context," Brenda blurted out, her voice cracking. "She was aggressive. She was refusing to follow crew instructions. I was protecting the safety of the flight deck. That is my right as senior purser." Pendleton turned around slowly. His face was a mask of cold fury. "Safety?" Pendleton asked softly. He walked over to the table and threw a stack of papers onto the mahogany surface. They slid across and hit Brenda's hands. "You call this safety?" Brenda looked down. It was a printout of the passenger manifest for Flight 492. Next to Alana Mercer's name, in the special remarks column, was a clear notation. VIP, CEO Mercer Dynamics, Pan-Atlantic Partner. "The system flagged her as a VIP, Brenda," Pendleton said. "It was on your iPad. Did you even look at it?" The glare. I didn't see it," Brenda stammered. "And her clothes. She didn't look like a VIP. She looked like a thug." The air was sucked out of the room. The union rep closed her eyes and pinched the bridge of her nose. The head of legal started scribbling furiously. "A thug," Pendleton repeated. "Dr. Alana Mercer holds a PhD in aerospace engineering from MIT. She has 3 patents pending that are currently keeping our fleet in the air. And you saw a thug because she was wearing a sweatshirt." "I made a mistake in judgment," Brenda pleaded. "But you can't fire me. I have 20 years of service. I have a pension. The union contract says I get a warning for a first offense." "This isn't a first offense," Ms. Vance said, pulling another sheet from the file. "Since the video went viral yesterday, we have received 42 separate complaints from past passengers. All of them describe similar behavior. Profiling, rudeness, power trips. You've been bullying passengers for years, Brenda. We just didn't connect the dots until now." "Those are lies, internet trolls," Brenda shrieked. Pendleton leaned over the table, placing both hands flat on the wood. "Brenda, listen to me closely. At 8 a.m. this morning, Alana Mercer's legal team sent over a formal notice. They are reviewing the termination of our $600 million avionics contract. If they pull out, we lose our maintenance certification for the A350 fleet. That will ground 30 planes. It will cost this company billions. It will cost thousands of people their jobs." Brenda sat frozen. The scale of what she had done was finally hitting her. "You didn't just insult a passenger," Pendleton hissed. "You nearly bankrupted this airline." "So, what happens?" Brenda whispered. "You are terminated immediately for gross misconduct," Ms. Vance stated, "effective 9:15 a.m. today." "And my pension?" Brenda asked, her voice trembling. "I'm 3 years away from full retirement." "Gross misconduct voids the company contribution matching clauses in your contract," the head of legal said dryly. "You leave with what you contributed, nothing more. You lose your flight benefits. You lose your lifetime pass. You are permanently banned from flying on Pan-Atlantic Airways." "You can't do that!" Brenda stood up, knocking her chair over. "I gave my life to this airline, and you tried to destroy it in 5 minutes because your ego couldn't handle a black woman in first class," Pendleton said. "Get her out of my building." Security guards stepped forward. Brenda looked at her union rep, begging for help. Sarah Jenkins shook her head. You said she was a thug, Brenda. There's nothing I can do for you. You're on your own. As Brenda was escorted out of the boardroom, sobbing, she didn't see a boardroom. She saw the ruins of her life. She was 55 years old. She had no degree. She had a reputation that was currently being shredded on CNN. And she had just lost her retirement. The winter snows had melted, and spring had arrived in New York City. Dr. Alana Mercer walked onto the stage at the Women in Aviation Gala. The applause was deafening. She wore a stunning emerald green gown, her hair in natural curls, looking every inch the billionaire titan of industry she was. She approached the podium. "Thank you," she said, smiling. 6 months ago, I was almost arrested for trying to go home. Today, I am proud to announce the Mercer Sterling Scholarship. In partnership with Captain James Sterling, who is here with us tonight, we are fully funding flight school for 50 young women of color every single year. The crowd erupted. Captain Sterling, sitting at the head table, stood up and waved, looking proud. The partnership between Mercer Dynamics and Pan Atlantic had been saved, but only after the airline agreed to a massive overhaul of their training programs that Alana now helped oversee. She was powerful. She was respected. She was changing the world. Miles away, in a grim suburb of New Jersey, the rain was pouring down. Brenda Miller stood behind the counter of a discount grocery store. Her feet ached. She was wearing a smock that smelled like bleach. The hourly wage was $16.50, a far cry from the 6-figure salary she had commanded as a senior purser. She scanned a carton of eggs. Beep. She scanned a loaf of bread. Beep. "Is that all?" Brenda asked, not looking up. She didn't like making eye contact anymore. She was afraid someone would recognize her. "Yeah, that's it," said the customer. Brenda looked up to take the payment. The customer was a young black woman in a university hoodie. She looked happy, vibrant. The woman held out her card to pay. She paused, looking at Brenda's name tag. Then she looked at Brenda's face. A flash of recognition crossed the young woman's eyes. She had seen the video. Everyone had seen the video. Brenda froze. She felt the heat rising in her cheeks, the old shame, the new fear. She waited for the insult. She waited for the camera to come out. But the young woman just looked at her with a mixture of pity and indifference. "Just put it on the card, please," the woman said quietly. Brenda reached for the card reader. Her hand was shaking. The machine beeped, declined. Brenda looked at the screen. It declined," she mumbled. "Try it again," the woman said. Brenda tried again. "Declined." "I'm sorry," Brenda said, her voice small. "The system says insufficient funds." "Oh, no problem," the woman said. She pulled out another card, a platinum card. "Use this one." It went through immediately. As the woman took her grocery bags, she leaned in slightly. "You know," she said softly, "karma has a funny way of balancing the books, doesn't it?" The woman walked away, the automatic doors sliding shut behind her. Brenda stood alone in the fluorescent glare of the grocery store. She looked at her reflection in the plexiglass divider. The blonde French twist was gone, replaced by limp, grey-streaked hair tied back with a rubber band. The red lipstick was gone. She thought about her pension. She thought about the first-class cabin. She thought about Alana Mercer. She realized then that she hadn't just lost a job. She had lost herself. She was exactly where she had tried to put Alana, at the bottom, judged and struggling. Brenda Miller looked down at the register, a single tear tracing a path through the dust on her cheek. "Next customer," she whispered. And that is the story of how Brenda Miller learned the most expensive lesson of her life. She judged Dr. Alana Mercer by her hoodie, thinking she could crush her, but she didn't realize she was picking a fight with a woman who builds the very planes she flew on. Alana turned her humiliation into a movement, opening doors for others, while Brenda lost her career, her pension, and her dignity, ending up scanning groceries for the very people she used to look down on. It's a brutal reminder. Humility costs nothing, but arrogance can cost you everything. You never truly know who you are talking to, so treat everyone with respect, whether they're in a bespoke suit or an old grey hoodie. If you believe Alana got the justice she deserved, hit that like button right now. And if you want to see more stories where karma strikes back instantly, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder to be kind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.